the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
AVWeek is produced and distributed through a partnership with AVNation and Rave Publications. For more information, go to ravepubs.com/AVNation. This is AVWeek, episode 35, recorded Friday, March 30th, 2012. Weighted knobs.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek. It's time for AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. I'm your host, Tim Albright. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. This week, joining us is George Tucker from World Stage. He also has his own blog, and he's on Twitter at Tucker2s. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hello, all.
Matt D. Scott is in the snowy London, Ontario, Canada. That's what you get for living in Canada. He's also from Omega Audio Video. How are you?
Well, I was doing better till that intro, but thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, that it's snowing outside?
That it's snowing, yes. I'm hiding in my basement.
Or that you're Canadian. Well, he's not Canadian. He's not Canadian. He just lives there. Tim Schnabel from Extron Electronics. He is the Director of Education Programs there. Afternoon, sir.
Greetings, everyone.
And last but not least, birthday. This is the second week in a row we've had a birthday boy on. Birthday boy, Chris Tatton. He's the Senior Systems Program for HB Communications.
A Senior Systems Program.
I'm sorry, Senior.
I know you like to do that, but thank you.
A Senior System. It's his birthday, so right now he's the only one. Last week we had on Kevin Iselli on his birthday, so yeah, we're going to have to just see whose birthday is next week. This week we're going to talk about BTX earning the Sapphire Certified AV Solutions Provider for Infocom and what all that really means. Picking a streaming device and projector or flat panel. We're going to go around and have a couple rounds of that. But first, speaking of rounds, this feels kind of like a title bout with Kaleidescape and the DVD CCA. But here recently, another round, as it were. This again comes from our buddies over at CE Pro and Julie Jacobson, who just has she has a bee in her bonnet about this whole thing. And basically, not for anything, but the Kaleidescape stay was denied, and they say doesn't matter. We're still going to keep going. George, last week we talked about this and we asked if it mattered, and Rich Fragoza, our buddy from the West Coast, said no, it doesn't matter. We don't care about DVDs anymore. So I'm going to start with you. Does this whole fight matter, and where do you see the end of this fight? What's the end game here?
Sure. Give me the softball question to begin with. Where's it going to end is when we finally can get to streaming. Although I think there's a big debate about universal streaming, as it were. I think even on that same Julie Jacobson article, there was somebody, I think Robert, a guy named Robert, who was ranting about how don't go for streaming. It's not the same quality, and you lose all of your rights. The big corporate monsters are trying to take away all your rights, and they want to charge you for every time you view the movie. I think that's where it's going to end, is when people stop buying DVDs. And I don't think that time is too far off. I know that I am no longer really buying DVDs for my kids. I don't own a Blu-ray player because I don't really watch that many, and all the kids' stuff is really on DVD, which is cheaper, or streaming. So I really just go streaming, and my kids watch as often as they want because I've got the plan. No, it's not HD. No, it's not 1080p, but it's 720p, and they don't care. So I think that's really where it's probably going to eventually stop. Although the big debate here is the bickering about the legacy gear. People are reading the ruling saying, no, you can't even fix your stuff or upgrade it for any reason. And Kaleidescape is saying, yes, we can. And I think that's where the big debate really comes into play.
Well, Matt, is this a yes, I can, no, you can't type fight, or does the DVD CCA, from your point of view, have any leg to stand on?
Can I just say it's a stupid fight?
Sure.
Begin with, because I think it is. It's ridiculous. It drives me crazy.
Okay, hold on. Stupid from whose angle though? Stupid from Kaleidescape or stupid from the DVD CCA?
From the DVD CCA.
Or everybody.
And kind of everybody, but mainly the DVD CCA. Blah, blah.
Oh, go
that
ahead.
One.
Say it 5 times fast.
No, I don't want to. I won't even give them the airtime. No, I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. The ability of us to do what we want with our media, whether it be no matter how we obtained it, I think should be our right. And I understand that all of this stems out of them trying to curb counterfeiting and blah 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 blah, but it just drives me absolutely batty.
I think one of the main things that is really being overlooked in this whole thing is the legal system isn't taking into account the spirit of any of these laws, and what they were designed to do and what they're effectively doing right now. They were designed to prevent the pirating of digital media to friends, the internet, whomever out there, so that people were getting paid for their content that they created, and rightly so. By taking this and saying that you can't take this disc, put it on a streaming box, and use it throughout your house, I mean, is that really what this law was designed to do? I don't think so. I mean, you still obviously own the disc. The DVD CCA has already said that they're not even in favor of doing something like Kaleidescape is doing with Blu-ray, where the disc has to actually even be in the carousel. Yeah. I mean, it sounds to me like this is a last gasp for a dying, association, so to speak. I mean, DVDs have a shelf life, or not a shelf life, but a life of another 3 years tops, maybe 5.
It's one of those things. I have a couple boxes full of DVDs. I could not tell you the last time I pulled an actual DVD out to watch.
So you're either streaming them or you're bringing them off a server,
or that or Blu-ray.
Oh, okay.
And I thoroughly agree with your point that it seems like a last grasp for relevancy.
So let me ask this in general, guys. A couple years ago, Reed Hastings, the guy who is the head of Netflix, said in a statement that he expects Netflix to be out of the quote-unquote DVD delivery business by 2020. This was in the late 2000s. That's only 8 years away. Do you think that was a conservative estimate, or was that incredibly too liberal? Do you think it'll take longer than that? George, do you think it'll take longer than 8 years to get rid of DVDs?
No. I'm thinking if nobody mucks it up with some kind of litigation, it's 5 tops, as someone stated earlier. I think it was Chris. You really are true. It's the last gasp of somebody who's fighting. I mean, I was going to say this about another article we're going to talk about later, but this really feels sort of like the Black Knight from Monty Python.
I'm not dead.
It's just a flesh wound.
Just a flesh wound.
He's there in all stumps, banging his head against the guy. I mean, it's really what's happening. And why? I don't know. They're trying to save their phony baloney administration at this point. I can't see DVDs coming back for any real reason. I just can't. Might as well bring back DATs.
With Blu-ray players getting less and less expensive every day, what point is there to not buy a Blu-ray if you have a player?
Right.
If your DVD player dies, are you going to go buy a new DVD player? No, you're going to go buy a Blu-ray player because it'll play Blu-rays and it'll play DVDs.
Right.
And then once you have a Blu-ray player, are you ever going to buy another DVD again? No.
No, you'll just buy the latest. When Cars 5 comes out, I'll buy it on Blu-ray for my son. Tim,
well, there's two questions I want to ask about this actually. The guy Robert on that comments page did say there's a debate here about owning your content. And does anybody else in this assembled panel fear that that's what we're eventually leading to here, is that these companies are going to actually turn this into, hey, you stopped it but watched it again, and that's another 5 cents for the actual movie play or whatever they're going to charge? Is this an issue for you?
That is an issue for me. And I am one of those people who, if there's a movie I like, I don't think twice about buying it. And I want a physical disc. And as much as I really enjoy watching something on Netflix or something like that, I cannot stand not being able to watch it on my terms whenever I want.
Okay, so what's wrong with the Amazon model or the iTunes model then at that point, where you purchase the digital copy, I guess is the best way to put this, and then you can watch it whenever you want and if you do the iTunes model, wherever you want, whether that's an iPad or Apple TV or your iPod or your iPod Touch or your iPhone. I mean, is there anything wrong with not owning the physical media, but owning the digital version of that?
I don't really have a problem owning a digital copy of it as long as there are rules and rights of me purchasing it, means that I can burn it to a disc if I want. It's that whole thing. I remember when DMA came out for music in iTunes, and there was this stupid restriction of you could only burn this to something like 4 CDs. And I'm like, yeah, I remember reading that going, okay, so what if I buy this, song and I want to put it on my iPod and then burn a copy for my truck, my wife's truck or my wife's vehicle, my CD player in the garage and, a big changer.
Yeah.
Is that all I'm allowed to do with it? I own it. I should be able to do whatever I want with it. So that's my only issue with, buying something digitally. And more importantly, at least being able to store it on my own hard drive.
Well, that was the other thing I was going to bring up is that, Matt lives up in Canada where internet is scarce and slow.
And they have different media issues as well.
But yeah, we definitely have huge media issues as far as what's available.
But if you have to spend the bandwidth, potentially to anytime you want to watch that movie, to download 1080p video, I mean, if you have a bandwidth cap, that's a big problem for you.
It is. And we are, I know you guys don't have bandwidth for pennies per se, but I know our bandwidth comparatively is much higher cost than yours in the States. So I look at, like last night, I watched 2 episodes of Justified, which if you haven't seen it, is a very good show. Sorry for the little plug. But I watched 2 episodes.
Is that a Justin Timberlake show or a Justin Bieber show?
No, and I'm hurt that you would associate me with Bieber, but thank you for that. Gosh.
Continue.
Just let shameless plugs win at the end of the show.
They do.
They're supposed to, but I do not endorse. Anyways, so I watched 2 episodes of the show. The annoying thing to me is I know what that costs me, not only in the, fact that I'm paying for Netflix, which is, obviously next to nothing, but I also know how much that's going to cost me in bandwidth because I know how much the streaming cost me just to stream it to my iPhone. And that's where it, does become that whole of if I own it, but it's only based in the cloud and I'm not able to own it locally or physically on a local server, then yeah, it definitely becomes an issue.
Tim, you guys have to deal with everybody. That's that's for sure. Is there a philosophy or anything when it comes to manufacturing and having to deal with all these different things? I mean, do you guys foresee not having to deal with, let's say, composite signals or DVD signals in general, and more looking towards the digital, the digital realm, the digital revolution, the digital movement that we're doing?
Well, from a manufacturer's perspective, there's one thing we're not going to get into is storage. Storage is cheap nowadays; it's a commodity, so we're not going to go there. But in terms of video signals, yeah, everything we're coming out with now is in the digital world. But we still can't ignore analog. It's going to be with us for a long, long, long time.
Do you have? I'm not asking you to give away secrets. Do you have a sense though? Of in 10 years, our SMXs aren't going to have or analog video inputs, or is it 20 years, or have you guys even talked about that?
Well, I would say look in the case of Kaleidescape with the story. I mean, if you're in a certain business and come out with a certain product, make hay while the sun shines, because standards and technologies change. So with that same mind frame, standards take decades to develop to a certain degree. So, digital is still in a developmental stage to a certain degree. I don't think the VGA connector is going to change. I think it's going to be with us a long time. Same with the composite signal, but we haven't discussed really outlying factors that we're going to see the demise in that. We're kind of under the preface that we're going to be living with all of them in the same manner for quite a long time into the future.
Yeah, and there's probably something to be said for that, because you're right. We're not all going to go out one day and burn all of our DVDs, just like we didn't all go out and burn all of our VHSs or betas at one point. So, well,
that question came up with the CIO at a college I was talking to yesterday. I said, are you buying CPUs and computers and servers that have only digital outputs? He says, no, they're still coming with analog as well. So until the computer manufacturers really say, okay, this is what you get, manufacturers still have to accommodate both worlds.
Well, that is true, and that's a big part.
And I just wanted to say that I actually have a difference of opinion on the whole VGA thing. Intel and AMD have already said that they're going to kill VGA, and regardless of what anybody wants to believe, Intel is still the leading manufacturer of graphic chipsets in the world, regardless of what AMD does with their ATI acquisition or what NVIDIA does. Intel still has the market share. And they've already said that they're going to kill VGA because it's the only reason they need to maintain 5 volts on the chip.
Wow.
Well, and how long ago did Apple kill VGA? Apple hasn't had VGA in what? Oh, gosh.
4 years?
Yeah.
5 years?
Yeah,
but they still support it. I mean, they'll still sell you a $30, converter.
Hey, it's $39.99.
Only in Canada.
Yeah, yes, they've made that announcement, and I'm not refuting the fact they're not going to do it, but they still have to, enact that announcement.
Oh yeah, they still have to at some point pull the trigger and say, no, it doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Well, and I guess the other side of it as well is how many people still have VGA only infrastructure.
Yeah.
How many schools, colleges, even corporate business offices have nothing but VGA throughout their entire building.
Yeah, I mean, when I go out in the field and do demos, I've got a laptop that has DisplayPort and VGA. Unless I'm physically demoing an Extron product that uses digital, and therefore forcing myself to use the DisplayPort output, if I go into a facility to do some kind of presentation or training, I'm using the VGA connector. Yeah, because that's what's in the room.
That's what's in the room, and we anyway. There's a few years ago, you couldn't really put in nothing but digital. You had to put in a Siamese system, and college presidents are just like CEOs. You hate to see money go to waste, and so they're looking at all of these what now could be considered not legacy necessarily, but analog systems certainly, and they're saying, wait a minute, I spent how much money on this system? You darn well better make it work. I'm squeezing every last ounce of usefulness out of this system.
By the way,
yes,
CE Pro just posted. It's 3:30 on March 30th. They just posted Kaleidescape granted temporary stay on DVD servers.
Well, there you go. Very good.
There you go. It's going to be more fun.
It's developing as we speak.
I like to think that it's all because of this argument we had.
It is.
It is.
It's because of this very podcast. Even though nobody else hears it with the 5 of us. So,
note in the article, they're still urging dealers to keep on selling.
Sell. Yes. Well, we had Rich Fragoza on last week, and Rich is a big residential guy, and he was saying, just last week he sold 3 systems. What are you laughing at?
Rich being laughing. Rich.
I coughed.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were laughing at Rich.
I was smiling
okay.
at Rich.
But he sold 3 Kaleidescape systems last week. Now that's Rich, and he can do that. So, all right. From CNET, LG and Samsung says, we're not done yet with 3D. I'm not dead. I'm feeling better.
You soon will be.
I soon will be. Quiet, you.
This is the Monty Python episode.
We've got to put a link to Monty Python. Basically, what this article says is, TVs so much, but hey, we've got these really cool little phones that, of course, you're going to be able to hook up to your TV, to your 3D TV. So your 3D LG, Samsung, camera can hook up to your 3D LG Samsung display because we all love 3D.
Yay!
Yeah. Chris, I've never asked you this question. Do you like 3D?
No, not really.
Tim, do you like? Yeah, you're a manufacturer. Do you like 3D?
Do I like watching 3D?
Yes.
No. Not
okay.
No.
There we go. That's what I want.
I'm not a fan of wearing glasses unless I'm outside wearing sunglasses.
There's a reason I liked you.
I will say that the only way I like 3D is if it's 3D IMAX and it's something that is digitally created, like a kid's movie or something, where the 3D is done well. But as far as 3D from, anything else, couldn't care at all.
I'll tell you what, in a couple weeks, I'll give you guys a review of my first 3D movie because I'm going to see Titanic with my wife. So I will, the things that we do.
You enjoy that.
I've never seen the movie, period, so I figured, I've never seen it. I just did one of those things. Yeah. I was single at the time when it came out and just refused to for the last 20 years. So,
it sinks, just so you know.
You know what? And that's been my argument the entire time we've been married. She's like, "Oh, it's a wonderful movie. You should watch it with me." I said, "No, the boat sinks and everyone dies. That's not the point." She says, "Well, whatever." All right, Georgie, is this Are they just did they buy a lot of 3D technology and they're just trying to get it off the shelves? Is that the deal here? I mean, do they not get that we don't want this stuff?
It's as reasonable an explanation as I can give.
Well, or is it that us technology guys are the one grousing about it? And you know what? My dad, who, God love him, I still have to set his VCR. He really likes this stuff.
Well, what's his experience with it?
It's cool. It's technology. You get to see,
But movie theater in the home. Where's he seeing most of his 3D?
Yeah, that's true.
The movie theater is a different experience. Although I'm not very fond of 3D everywhere and real 3D and all that nonsense. Great marketing terms, though. Somebody in the marketing departments are making good money making logos. But my question with 3D really becomes the personal gaming and the home theater and the home viewing that I think 3D is just way overblown. In the actual movie theaters, it's the same thing as the big old stretch screens and the Spectravision and all this other stuff they did. Occasionally it's nice, but trying to enforce it on everybody. And I know a bunch of people who dove in and bought those 3D DS things and in about a week put them down and went, "I was the biggest waste of money I ever did. It gives me headaches all the time and you got to hold it a certain way. My arms hurt." It's just maybe in the future they'll prove us wrong, but I just don't doubt it. I don't get it at all.
So Matt, is this? I mean, you're not hooking up. You've sold, I'm sure, more than one 3D TV.
Oh yeah, we've sold tons of them.
So is this something you have to worry about though, like hooking up?
I was actually rushing back from a client meeting to make this call this afternoon.
Oh, that's sweet.
And I know, wasn't it? I skipped lunch for it too, just so you know. That's why I'm a little grouchy. Anyways, halfway through our conversation. It's just a nice everyday couple and they want to put a little theater room in just to watch movies and play with the kids and stuff. And halfway through, he turns to me and goes, "So about this 3D stuff." And I'm like, "Yes." He's like, "Should I do it?" And I'm like, "Do you watch 3D?" He goes, "No." I go, "When was the last time you went to a 3D movie at a theater?" And it was like a good 30-second pause before he named some kids movie they saw like 8 months ago. And I said, "So if you haven't seen them that often in the theater to begin with, what makes you want to watch them at home?" And I was like, I don't know. I just hear about it all the time. I'm like, and that, kind of answers your question. If you don't know you want it, then why would we even put it in for you? Yeah. Except for the fact that it comes with almost every TV we sell now. And,
really?
Almost
every TV?
In my market, yeah, pretty much. Wow. Most of the Samsungs we sell, they all have, 3D ready. Almost every Panasonic is 3D ready, in the large scale formats. So on that basis, then, yeah, we're putting them in a lot. Are they being used? No. I think I only have one client who consistently watches something in 3D. And I myself have a full 3D rig, and I've watched all of 30 seconds, or I'm sorry, maybe 30 minutes of a Shrek DVD.
And that was for business purposes.
No, that was to put it on and go, oh yeah, not bad. Yeah. Yeah, like to the point I have boxes of glasses that I've never even opened because I don't watch 3D.
Interesting idea. Is it possible that the whole reason that we're even talking about 3D is because the manufacturers have really run out of other features to develop, and they've just latched onto this as the next thing because they don't have any other better ideas?
Sure, they have the next thing. 4K, 8K. After that, 16K.
But it's not here yet, and they can push the 3D.
Well, and that's
but short of bumping the resolution, at some point you hit the point where, you reach quote unquote retina quality, where bumping the resolution anymore means nothing. And then what?
Well, and I think you're hitting on something because there's still. I say the next thing is 4K. Because people like Extron and other switcher manufacturers are having to deal with that because projector manufacturers are coming out with it, but the supply isn't there, just like 3D was 5 years ago. They started, the display guys were saying, here's 3D, and the content guys were going, ho, wait, back up a second. I don't have it yet. And then they started doing the re-releases, and then they started doing the movies, and then came Avatar, and then came the release of every Disney classic ever known to man, put out in 3D. And now they've got the content, which kind of sort of gives the display guys a resurgence, while at the same time they're pushing on to the next one.
Well, and I think it comes down to, even especially from the content side, a lot of that content is calling it 3D is it's a very loose definition of 3D. We're talking, minor depth of field changes to all of those Disney re-releases. But yeah, I think for the most part, it's mainly a money grab.
Yeah.
As I said, I never get asked for it specifically. It always comes up because they saw a commercial or they saw something and said, hey, is this, I read in the specs of the screen you quoted us that it has 3D. And yeah, like it reminds me back of when the quote unquote connected TV first came out. And there were a couple of apps on it. Now you couldn't do Netflix and, Hulu and all that other jazz, but you could get YouTube and stuff like that. And the way they've been marketing all the current screens and connected TVs with Hulu and stuff, really not much has changed. And yet the pricing has, kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
So just a little bit.
All right. Enough bashing for 3D for 1 week. From our buddies over at Rave Publications, Kaleidescape wrote a blog post and posed the question that I will pose to you, gentlemen. And the question is this. When you're putting in a system, do you put in a projector or a flat panel? He goes on to write real quickly that this is not a great taste, less filling question. This really has to do with solutions and installations. Tim, we'll start with you on this because you've been around more than one education place in your life, and you guys have actually quite a nice education facility yourself. Is it kind of you walk in and you can just automatically say, yeah, you need a flat panel in here, or yeah, you need a projector in here, or is it is there more to it than that?
Well, there's more to it than that. Off the cuff, you visit a lot of universities and they're putting both in. Even on single display rooms, you might have some sidewalls that have LCDs or flat panels on there. But the big trend in classroom design that I've seen is collaboration type classrooms where you're putting a couple projectors in, but you've got these work cells or pods that each have their own flat panel that a small group of students can collaborate, and then the instructor can route those signals to the projectors depending on what they want to share with the class. So, I see both proliferating. Obviously a flat panel has some nice aesthetics to it. I did run into a customer at Harvard last year, and they put a 103-inch flat panel into a high-end conference room, and you can't get that through an elevator. I mean, so they have to hire a crane. block traffic on Huntington Avenue and open the windows to hoist in a 103 flat panel. So you got to look at the infrastructure of the building to see if you can even get a panel as large as what's needed for those rooms. And that's where, still the projector in terms of your bang for the buck per diagonal square inch is going to give you the largest image right now.
Yeah. George, can you just walk in and say, yep, you need this or you need that? Or, do you have like a standard, one that you prefer? Like if you can put in a projector you'd prefer to, or vice versa?
Well, first of all, I think that really comes down to what is the room, right? I mean, there's certain rooms that it just won't work unless, of course, somebody's willing to say, well, when someone goes, so-and-so stands up to go to the bathroom, they're going to put their head through the projector or have the duck. There are rooms like that, right? And so it really is, what do you want? What's the room space? And what is the ambient light issue? And we're not even talking about audio, right?
No.
Just those are the factors that that's my initial take. What will work? What won't work? After that, I personally prefer flat panels because I find them brighter, I find them more detailed, and I like that. Any projection system that I've seen, regardless of how well it's done, doesn't really look that good to me. So that's sort of my bias, but it really does come down to what does the client want and what do they need, and what can the room you're putting it in really support.
That's funny you say that because I didn't realize I had a bias until you started explaining that. I have a bias towards projectors. Now, part of that's the fact that I live in an education world, so that start there. But the other part is when you're doing a PowerPoint or a lecture looks drastically different on a flat panel than it does on a projector. I mean, the resolutions are not apples to apples, and so maybe that's where my bias comes in.
I think it's safe to say that a flat panel of a given size looks better than a projected image of the same size and resolution. That's my personal opinion, I think, because of the contrast ratio that you get. I mean, unless you spend a lot of money to build a rear projection room, and even then, black isn't really black. It's kind of just a very
gray.
Dark grayish color. A flat panel absolutely looks better. You do reach a point where size is an issue. You cannot, granted, although you can get a 150-inch flat panel, it's like I forget who it was.
It's expensive.
Well, it's expensive, and like Tim said, it's impossible to install.
Yeah.
And at that point, a projector is what you want to go with because you're going to spend more money to install that flat panel than you are going to pay for the device.
Yeah, and then somebody drops it and breaks it, and then you get another one. And Matt, do you have a bias like George and I do, or is it really just each instance requires its own math?
I find that most often we have to tailor it completely to the space and the customer, whether it be residential or commercial. You and I have had many discussions about the improper use of flat panels in house of worship.
Yep.
And, it's one of those things where a lot of times, yes, flat panels make way more sense. A lot of times projectors make way more sense. And quite often, especially in the resi world, both make an absolute ton of sense to put both of them in. And that was actually what we were quoting today was a dual system that was both projector and flat panel combination. And, as much as I love the big screen and the use of the large screen for, whatever application that may be, if we can afford it budget-wise, I'm putting a flat panel in. But it's got to be the right flat panel. And that's where a lot of times that justification doesn't always work, because if they can't afford it, especially say, for example, house of worship, we can't swap, 2 side fill projector screens for TVs. It just doesn't happen. Who's going to justify even the cost of a 103-inch Panasonic to replace even a very nicely done, say, $15,000 screen and projector combo? Even if you look at that, you're still getting 2 screens for the price of one TV. And, that's where it really does come down to the whole got to find it. So I'm always a fan of the more resolution I can get, the better.
Yeah, I think I am too.
Another key difference in the installation and choosing what you want to install is sight lines, as far as the projector to the screen versus any cameras in the room. If you want to do recordings, if there's no way that anybody is going to stand in front of the path of light from the projector, and for example, that house of worship market, where you've got it up on the side for showing the audience view. There's nobody that's going to get in the way of that. You can use a projector and not impact the image by standing in front of it. Where if you have a conference room where you have somebody presenting to a bunch of people and they want to gesture to the screen and point out something on their Excel spreadsheet, them standing in front of the projector is a distraction.
Oh, definitely.
And at that case, you want to try to minimize that distraction, and a flat panel is a really great way to do that.
That's true. The Infocom wrote an article a couple of days ago, and it kind of got me peeking and talking and thinking about the next generation of TVs. And I think this will be our last story on TVs in general. But yeah, we've spent a lot of time talking about TVs today, and the question was this, and the article basically said this: we're entering into an interesting time where there is a whole lot we're going to be able to do with flat panels, and we're talking about everything from connected TVs, which is something that Matt talked about, to being able to, if you believe some of the rumors with Apple, being able to interact with it over voice. And one of the rumors is the fact that there is going to be a physical Apple TV, and the remote control for it will be Siri, which is the voice activated connection that you have with your new iPhone. Matt, is this going to be an issue, or is it really as cool as it really sounds?
I think it'll be as cool as it really sounds. That being said, I think integration could be an issue. It's one of those things where we've done a lot of work doing a lot of residential. We do a lot of work with Xboxes and Xbox Live and Xbox Connect, and a lot of their new voice control applications, albeit very cool, sometimes can be a pain in the butt to integrate. So I think that's really going to be the caveat with these is it'll be understanding the coolness factor and how well or not well they integrate.
George, is this something that we're going to have to start worrying about, like with control systems and stuff like that, and integrating with that and all these different controls, or can we just throw these up on the wall and have them a part of our whole systems?
I think eventually it will be the latter, definitely. I'm still a tactile button guy.
I know you like your weighted knobs.
I like my weighted knobs. Thank you very much, Miss November 63. But the
explain that.
It's a blog post from a long time ago about my love of weighted knobs and why they should be on every device. But that's another story.
We'll put a link to that one.
We have to keep a clean rating on this show.
I know.
I do my damnedest to break it, but I won't do it this time. But there's that tactile feel. There's something good about a response that just saying it. I don't know. Maybe I'm an old curmudge. Maybe I'm having my my cranky geek moment. But it's not there for me yet where I can actually, have to say, Siri, TV, volume down. Because in the time it takes me to do that, I can hit the button and I can just find it and do it. It's, it's not a big deal. So someday, yes, and I'm sure my kids will probably be trying to teach me how to do it. Dad, come on, you just do this. But
you just think, Dad. You just think. Concentrate.
I'm not a jester, dang it.
Yes, you are. Tim, is this something you guys have to worry about, or is it? Are we way off where we have to start interfacing with, the smart TVs for control systems and stuff?
Well, they say that a lot of the innovation and what makes its way into the commercial sector begins in the residential sector. But yeah, we have to keep an eye on it. But I think it still has to prove itself out. I mean, do you watch TV solitary where only your voice is in the room, or you watch sports with friends and say, "Hey, we're number one," and all of a sudden the TV turns channel? So
to channel one.
You've gotta watch it. But I think that it needs to mature a little bit and work a few things out.
All right, so nothing to worry about, nothing to see here. Everybody move on. NEC is doing something different with their tactile with their touchscreen, and one is tactile feedback. And George mentioned the fact that he likes weighted knobs. Not to pick on George anymore, but we will. This comes to us from geek.com. Is this something where you, Mr. Weighted Knob, are you going to be more apt to jump to a all-screen display, jump to something like an iPad or the Android version of that because it has the feedback, or is it still just a flat screen to you, George?
I actually, the former. I really like this idea. Now, Chris Tatton and I were talking about this offline a couple of days ago when we were, discussing some of the articles that were there. And Chris, you can chime in, but you weren't so impressed. But I like this for that reason, that if it is a touchscreen, whether it's on the wall or something on my lap or on the little desk, I can touch it, and that physical feedback will tell me without having to look at it. I can continue to watch my hockey game, not take my eye off the crease, and be able to raise or lower the volume as I'm doing something without having to look at it. That's my fascination with the weighted knobs and tactile buttons, is that I don't have to look at it, and I don't have to take my attention away to go find it or flip through pages to get to that feature. It's right there. And there's something very, very nice about that. You feel it respond to you. There was a car one, and I can't remember it. I couldn't find it in my research in the last day or so, in which it actually raised up. It had these little actuators that raised up over the screen. Now they're very limited to where they could be position-wise, but still, I've tried it at some show, some off trade show.
They got to him. They finally got
I
to
can't
George.
remember where it was, and it was really cool.
They finally got to George.
I really love that.
George.
Yes.
They finally got to you. They muted you halfway through that. So, the government, sir.
Oh,
yeah. That's why he's been hiding out in New Jersey, right?
Yes.
The swamps of New Jersey, baby.
The swamps of New Jersey. Chris, is this? I mean, George mentioned the fact that you and he were talking offline. You're not crazy about this idea. Why?
No, well, it's still a touchscreen with an LCD display behind it, and although I absolutely love the idea of being able to hit the volume up and down knob on my remote, it's still a touchscreen, and there's no way you're going to be able to do that with a touchscreen without looking down at the screen still.
Yeah.
I mean, you have no frame of reference, and this little haptic, touchscreen that moves this membrane over it, moves it in 2 dimensions.
I'm going to take you to task for this, though. Yes, you do know where it is, because on a screen layout, it's always in the same place. So if I have hard buttons on the side that take me to different screens, and I know where that button is, I know where to get it.
All right.
You moving the buttons on
yes.
in the design?
But this is not a hard button. You can't feel your finger over that button to know you're on it before you press it.
Okay, here's the crazy idea. You could.
But here's the other problem I have with this product, because I watched this video. It's noisy. I don't want to use a touchscreen that makes that much noise.
It's a first rev.
But explain to me how they're going to make this any quieter. How are they going to make this any quieter?
Tim, you guys
still got all this wonderful stuff that's got to move the screen. They can't make it any quieter.
Put a muffler on it.
Suspend the laws of physics and create a completely frictionless design.
Impossible.
It's plasma. Tim, you guys joined. You guys finally you released your interface for the iOS with your about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Is this having haptic feedback, having feedback on buttons? Is that important, do you think, or like Chris said, is it just kind of it's noisy and it's silly?
Well, for maybe residential, it might be, but in higher ed, ADA compliance, Section 503 compliance is there's officers employed by campuses to make sure devices comply with that. So, as I see it right now, it enables a touch panel to provide more tactile feedback to become more compliant to be associated with Americans with disabilities. So that's a big push in higher ed. And as far as that iPad app that you referenced, yeah, I mean, if you turn on your iPad and you enable the it's in the accessibility aspects of it, and you run that app, it's been written that if you tap on the button of the user interface, it audibly tells you what is on that button in the system.
Oh, sweet.
So that's automatically been written underneath the app to be compliant with Apple's, ADA on the iPad. So you have to manually turn that on, and it'll audibly give you that what your finger's touching. You double press it, and it goes ahead and makes that switch. So, if that right now touch panels can have not just beeps and clicks underneath a tactile push, but you could add WAV files to associate that with the specific command. I think tactile feel on a touch panel just takes ADA to the next level from a higher ed standpoint. So I'd like to see them continue that development on that, and see if they get it quieter, get price points down, to see if it becomes viable.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't realize that you guys had not tactile feedback but audible feedback. That's cool. All right, this comes to us from the BBC. And George is all excited about this. I am too. I'm a big theater guy. Theater and technology. And the article is talking about how technology is transforming theater and how actually it's causing a little bit of a row. George, is this a natural evolution of live staging and theater? And just to give us a shameless plug, before the end of the show, because Matt already did it. George started a new show this month called The Live Life, talking about staging and live events.
Yeah, and one of the things that we do is use multi-image, as the old phrase, or still the new phrase is, with theater. We did it as far back as things with Tommy on Broadway and Hedwig the Angry Inch and all of that. Shameless plug for World Stage. So it's not brand new, and it's been done, say, like at the George Papp's Public Theater for years. It's been experimental and avant-garde stuff, but it's pretty standard on Broadway now. There's always some sort of video support. There's always some sort of visual addition to the scenery, and it brings that scenery into a new dimension. Bring on the Noise, Bring on the Funk was simply storytelling on a backlit, a rear projection screen, but Wicked has stuff that seems to pop out. We do it with a bunch of different stuff that's going on. So it's not so new in the U.S., I think, as it is now emerging in the sort of higher theaters of Europe and England, where this article was generated. But it does have its conflicts. People want that theater and not to have to rely on a TVization of theater. But I think it adds something to the right shows. Again, appropriate where it's supposed to be and not overkill. But there are challenges into being able to interact the media with the acting, because acting's not the same every night. And you don't always want to make the actors act to the media. It has to be the other way around, really. I think that's where the difference comes. Yeah,
Matt, you guys have one of the more famous Shakespeare theaters up along London, Ontario. And like to George's point, you're not going to shove, a 50-inch plasma in the middle of Taming of the Shrew.
No.
But for the right one, does it make sense?
Yes, it does. And, they've actually been experimenting and doing more stuff, some projection mapping and pixel mapping and some stuff like that they have started to use in the show up at a couple of the different theaters up there. And it has been very impressive. And I like to see it come because, this is all stuff that we know about and we've seen. But when they're starting to use it more and more, it's an added effect to the production.
And to that point, and not to steal somebody else's thunder here, but we were going to have Mark Shubin on today, but he had technical difficulties. And Mark Shubin, ShubinCafe.com, is somebody who's been doing HD stuff for a long time, but he writes these really great blog posts about how technology like this is not so new. And he did a great article about opera in the 1800s, where they were doing gaslight shadow acting of these operas that were done live over the newfangled telephone systems. He talks about how they did this kind of stuff. This most recent one about baseball, where they had in different cities at the newspapers these automatron systems, for lack of a better phrase, which gave live updates of the baseball game, the World Series, with little things that moved around the field and stuff like that, giving you the score. So this stuff is not really new in adding to theater. It's just become so pervasive, and it's so cheap enough to do it in a larger scale.
Yeah, and that's Shubin Cafe is the website. We'll put a link to that as well, because that was a fascinating article. Because you've got I told George offline that it reminded me of the old story of Ronald Reagan in his first early days of radio, where he was rebroadcasting in the fields of Iowa a Cardinals baseball game that they lost the connection, and it was to hear Ronald Reagan say it, it was the longest, the most foul balls hit by a person at bat as they tried to reconnect it, and it's that same sort of theater of the mind type thing, and using technology to communicate whatever it is that you're trying to communicate. So I thought it was cool.
And what's really cool about that is that it was teletype, and he was actually there with almost like the movie theater or the movie making sound effects.
Yeah,
he had a bat. You hear the crack. You had a crowd sound. You hear the boom, the punch of a bag for the catch of the ball. I mean, they were doing it so far back that I don't have an objection to it. I don't know if any of the panel has objections to seeing a play with that in it.
I don't.
Well, I don't. Tim, do you go to the theater?
I haven't been to a theater other than to recommend product on a systems design, but I haven't been to a theater to do a CLI performance probably since the late 80s. Well, sorry, can't contribute.
He went to go see Cats the first run. So.
Oh. First in line, were you?
Yeah. Memories. Last from CNET, one of our favorite sources. We're going to start this kind of conversation because I have my own solutions for this. Which streaming media device is right for you? Dun dun dun. We've talked about this before. And we talked about at the top of the show how the next step, the next generation for all of us is going to be streaming. Is going to be getting our stuff offline, honestly, off the internet, in one way, shape, or form. And so there are some different, technologies mentioned here in the article. The Roku is one. The Apple TV is another. PS3 is one. I'll throw, Xbox in there alongside that. Some sort of connected Blu-ray player. The Western Digital, which is what I actually have at the house. You can throw in a number of different things. TiVo now, the newest generations of TiVo have streaming capabilities. Tim, we'll start with you on this one. If you have a favorite one, or one that you could say, you know what, this is, in general, the one that's going to give you the most or the best bang for your dollar.
Well, I think it depends on what your platform of choice personally is. For myself, my family with 7 Apple devices at home, obviously we're going to go with the Apple TV. But others that might not be on the Apple bandwagon are going to choose something else. So it just it comes back to what your platform, what your content, and what your subscription is. Some like iTunes, some don't.
Yeah, that is true. Matt D. Scott, what is you are on the Apple bandwagon?
You know what I am.
So this will be interesting. What is your favorite streaming device?
My favorite streaming device is the Apple TV as well. Partially because I am a big Apple user, but also just because it works best for what I use it for, which is, albeit fairly limited. I don't do a ton of streaming outside of Netflix. Part of that is because I live in the lovely tech wasteland that is Canada, where we don't get tons of content and media and other stuff available. So all the Hulu and stuff like that, we don't get it. So it doesn't matter to me.
How much bandwidth do you need for the Moose channel?
You know what? The Moose channel isn't bad. It's the Eskimo one and the Igloo channel. That one's a beast.
To you, buddy.
The Inuit channel.
Hey, they're still Eskimos.
What about the Aurora Borealis channel? That one I'd watch.
That one's cool. That one's very cool.
Hypnotic.
Yeah. All right, so go ahead, Matt.
No, you're fine.
I was going to say, going from the technology Siberia to the technology oasis of New York City.
It's cold.
George Tucker, what is your favorite streaming device?
I actually, I have a Wii, which I think is really cool. Wii! Just that my kids love the thing to play with, and I got a streaming box out of it, which was really kind of cool. What, honey? The kids love it. Streaming? Who knew? This is great.
That's how I sold the Xbox, by the way. But go ahead.
Exactly. But I do like that Roku box that they show that's under $50, and it had everything that I would want on it. It came with the available, like with MLB, with NHL. It came with other sports stuff that I really don't care about. But it had everything that I want because I'm not a cable guy watcher. I don't watch the reality shows or any of that stuff. But you know what? That stuff's all on there anyway. So I really like under $50 or $50, and then maybe a couple of bucks more, so it comes up to $80 with my monthly fees or something, to watch anything I want without having to put a cable box in. Plus, I can watch it anytime I want. I like this. This is where it's going to hit mainstream. Forget TiVo. These guys have got it down.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. The one thing that they did mention on it was that it says it only comes in 720p. Maybe for some of the installs that we involve ourselves in, it's a big deal. But as they said, majority of the regular people not going to notice.
Well, not only that, but there's a conversation we can have, and probably not here, but about whether or not you're really getting what HD quote unquote you're getting from your cable and your satellites. So you're not getting 1080p. So they may say you are, but you're not.
Well, it's sort of like the satellite radio, CD quality.
Yeah, sort of.
That one
is your CD all scratched up from under your chair?
Yes. My 3-year-old's had my Nirvana for 5 years now. So, Chris, do you have a favorite streaming?
Actually, I do not, but I have a Wii like George does that I use a lot for Netflix. And I was looking through this, and I'm going to wait for the gasps. I actually do not own a TV with an HDMI port on it.
Oh,
okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I'm still working on getting it past the appropriation committee.
You and me both.
But one of the things that I looked through this list that was really exciting to me was the Western Digital TV Live Hub. If for no other reason than it's got component outputs and it does everything that I want it to do. So yeah, maybe it's a little bit more pricey, but Western Digital's been in this field for a while. They're not, this whole streaming thing is relatively new to begin with, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not a newcomer to streaming. They've been doing it for at least a couple of years now. So this box is an evolution of previous boxes they've learned from mistakes, hopefully, but it's got component video outputs, which I really like. And it's got HDMI outputs for when I finally get that new TV through the Appropriations Committee, I can just hook it up that way. And it's the same interface. I don't have to teach my wife anything new. It just works, hopefully. And I'm fine paying the extra money for component video outputs because, quite frankly, none of those other solutions even work for me.
Yeah. Mine is a combination, and here's the reason why. I love the Roku. I really do. The only thing it doesn't do is it doesn't allow me to stream content that I have on a hard drive. If it did, it would be my home run. It really would, because Roku has all of the streaming things that I want. It has, like George mentioned, the MLB, and it has hockey, and it has so many more. It just won't do content on a hard drive anywhere. And that's where I go to the Western Digital, which is what I have at the house, because I've got a couple terabyte hard drive with Toy Story 1, 2, and 3, and Cars 1 and 2, and this, that, and the other. Because I have a 3 and a 5-year-old who think that DVDs are really Frisbees. So after about the second or third time I bought Toy Story, I said, okay, let's get it one last time, and we'll get a system to where, I'll rip it once and we'll put it on a hard drive, and you guys can watch it, however many times you'd like, but you're not going to mess with the actual physical media. So if Roku and Western Digital could come together somehow and marry, that would be my ultimate. So I guess I'm going to have to get one of each. Apple, I love Apple products. I don't have a whole lot of use for that one. And PlayStation's not really. I mean, I also have an Xbox, which does a lot of the same other things. So those are my streamers. So.
Well, the one other thing that none of us really talked about that I actually do use occasionally is my connected Samsung Blu-ray player, because I do have a lot of content that's not in iTunes due to usually format issues, and that Samsung Blu-ray player makes it very easy as long as I install their little server program onto my PC to access all that stored content as well.
Yeah.
And as far as
Go ahead.
1, 2,
Go ahead.
3. As far as playing back a lot of that stored content, that's been a very, very effective a way for me to do it. And the nice thing for me is the fact that I already have it. Because I watch Blu-rays, so I already have it. I don't need to buy an additional part to play back some of the other stuff.
Yes, and that was one drawback to Blu-ray players is I already have the Western Digital or the Roku thing, so anything that a Blu-ray player, with the exception of playing Blu-rays, would give me is I've already got it covered someplace else.
Exactly.
From SCN System Contractor News, BTX earns the Infocom CAVSP designation. Who knows what CAVPDSD yeah.
Gesundheit.
Jeez. It stands for, wow, the Sapphire Certified Audiovisual Solutions Provider. Now, this is not to say anything positive or negative about BTX or Infocom. My question is this, guys. Did you know this existed? And if you did, do you think it's a good thing to highlight companies that earn specific certifications or this certified audiovisual solutions provider?
I did know it existed because my company is a CAVSP certified dealer.
Yes, but what level?
I could not tell you.
See. Mm-hmm.
But I do think it is a good idea, if for nothing else, that it helps Infocom as an organization get AV out there and help their members with business. If you're a member of Infocom, it's in your best interest to do this, and Infocom then therefore is able to help you over some other mom and pop shop. Not that there's anything wrong with mom and pop shops, but is able to provide you with value as a member. So I think it's a good thing.
George, is this just kind of marketing, or is this, hey, this is really cool because these guys are really top notch, and it gives guys like me, who are ultimately somewhat of a version of an end user, a designation between one integrator over another?
Short answer is yes to all of the above. And that it is a marketing thing. It is a nice little way of raising revenue for Infocom, I suppose. But it also is something that we dearly need in the service industry. We all have our horror stories of getting support nightmares, whether it's just someone who didn't know, won't find out, or is just rude. And these kind of programs help organizations and manufacturers, or even just a dealership that may have a helpline, learn and establish and maintain that service level, that the ability to say, remember, these people are your friends. These people are the people, even more so, as we used to say, one of the companies I worked at is, just remember this. You getting their problem solves mean that they get out of the job sooner, which means they buy more gear for the new job, which means you can get paid. That's the way it runs.
Yeah.
And being mean to them doesn't get you paid. So it's a very personal thing. You want to be altruistic and say, well, I do it for the goodness of it all. But in reality, it's for the goodness of the companies that they do better so that you get a raise. And you got to keep that in line. And I think this is a good demarcation point for some companies to say, yes, we've made the effort to qualify this. It's sort of like ISO 9000 or something. It may be required by some organizations, but knowing that company made the effort and put the money in the training, that's a good thing.
I think the key to this type of certification is for Infocom to make sure that it stays relevant, and it's not just a rubber stamp that anybody can get. It's got to actually continue to mean something in order for it to be useful.
Yeah. Tim, is this useful for you guys as manufacturers to kind of say, let's say that you have an integrator who is coming to Extron for the first time and saying, hey, we'd like to be a dealer. If they had this over someone who didn't, would that be, kind of a feather in their cap in a way for them to put down on their application saying, hey, we've got this designation because we treat our customers right?
Well, yeah, it helps. I mean, obviously, in order to become an Extron reseller, you have to have a commercial place of business, installer support, design staff, all within that entity. If somebody's on the cusp, we're going to look at their industry certifications, and that's going to, show to us that they value training and development of their staff, which is kind of in line with Extron's thinking. That definitely helps. But I think it also, to their customer base, tells their customers and potential recruits that this organization values development. We allow you time on the company to get certified, and it makes it better for the industry as a whole. The question is, in the academic world, is, putting value on that so it's not always the low-cost bidder winning.
Yeah.
Where it puts value to the bid process that provides benefits to firms like this that have that credential.
Yeah, that is a very good point, because a lot of times when it comes to education and in other places as well, you could have 3 or 4 or 5 bids, and unfortunately sometimes it does come down to the bottom line, and not every time is the person at the bottom line a Sapphire certified audiovisual solutions provider.
Exactly.
I'll just put it that way. Matt, are you? Can you do this? Are you interested in this? Is this something that you see as a value, or is this just kind of cool for BTX? Yay!
I think it's good. Just as Chris was saying, it does bring value to our industry, and it's something that is important to help differentiate companies that, again, as I think we've all stated, are putting the time and effort in education and knowledge about the industry in which we work. It's a good level of recognizing that.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, gentlemen, that's all the time we had. Thank you guys so much for joining us. George Tucker can be found at Tucker2s on Twitter. And what is your website, sir?
tuckerstuesday.typepad.com.
Find there all his ramblings and other blog posts. We will put up a link to the blog post about the weighted knobs, so you'll have to send me that one. Matt D. Scott is an integrator, but also a blogger as well. Actually, George and Matt both are bloggers for the Rave Pubs blog squad. So your Twitter is at Omega Audio Video, and your website is what? OmegaAudioVideo.com, MattDScott.com. I could go on, but we'll stop there. 2's enough. You already did your shameless plug. So, Tim Schnabel is from Extron Electronics there in Anaheim, California, the Director of Education Programs. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Do you have a Twitter? Would you like to tweet?
Schnabby. SCHNABBY.
There we go, Schnabby. At Schnabby. I didn't know that. I learned something new today. At Schnabby. All right. Extron's website, in case you didn't know, is extron.com, as crazy as that is. Chris Tatton is from HB Communications, and it's his birthday today. So,
happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Thanks for joining us, dude. What's your Twitter and your company's website and all that?
My company's website is www.hbcommunications.com, and my Twitter is Chris_Tatton, TATTON.
TATTON. All right. My name is Tim Albright. Thanks so much for joining us, for listening this far. I do appreciate it if you've made it this far. If you'd like to follow me, it's TD, Tim David Albright, ALBRIGHT. But more importantly for me and everybody here at AV Nation, check out the website where you can find this show. Like I said, George Tucker started a brand new live staging show called The Live Life. All sorts of other ones. We just posted our education show today for the month of March. Go to ravepubs.com/AVNation. ravepubs.com/AVNation. Thanks so much for listening. That's all the time we have for AV Week.